Welcome back, everyone, to the Heel Deal Podcast. You're here with your hosts, Ben and Zach. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. So sorry for the late upload, everyone who was waiting for our podcast on Monday morning, but it's been a busy week at UNC, not just for sports, but for academics too, and Zach and I have been kind of slammed, but we should be getting this out the Thursday before the App State game. And we're going to talk about the Wake Forest game last Saturday, get into what we expect from App State this Saturday. But first, as always, let's get straight into the rundown of all the other non-football sports going on right now. So women's sports, women's soccer and field hockey, are doing pretty fantastic right now. Women's field hockey is sitting at 5-0, undefeated, and since our last podcast, they have 2 wins. They smacked Penn State 6-0, and they smacked William & Mary even more 8-0. So they haven't given up a single goal since the last podcast a week and a half ago. Women's soccer is doing equally as well. They beat Las Vegas 8-0. They beat Wake Forest 4-0, but they took their first loss of the season to Arkansas 0-2. So they're sitting at 7-1 overall. So they're killing it. They look like they're on the fast track back to the women's national championship. Be awesome to see.
Yeah, it'd be nice, man, after the way we lost last one. So
yeah, exactly. Men's soccer, they started their season a little slow, but they're trying to ramp things up, it looks like. So they beat UNC Greensboro 1-0, beat Virginia Tech 3-1, and then tied with Davidson 0-0. So they are sitting at 3-1-2 overall. So why don't we get straight into it? Let's talk about Wake Forest and that game. The first loss of the Tar Heels season, and I believe you are 0-3 on your football predictions so far.
Yeah, I am. Whenever I've picked us to lose, we've won, and whenever I've picked us to win, we've lost. But about Wake Forest, Ben, this is almost like 2 games in one in terms of the way the Tar Heels played and their morale and stuff. That whole first half, we couldn't get anything on offense going, especially on the ground. It was kind of just painful to watch. We really couldn't get anything at all. It kind of looked like last year's offense, running bubble screens and tackles for loss in the backfield constantly. And the defense was doing their best. They were doing the best they could, but they were on the field pretty much the whole half. And that never is a good formula to start the game.
Yeah, exactly. We got down 21-0 in the first half, which, it isn't great, but when we're just going 3 and out, punting the ball back, defense gets tired after a while. You can only hope for them to hold up for so long with our offense doing absolutely nothing to help them. But, yeah, you talked about how it's just like a different game between the halves, and yeah. I feel like this entire season the Tar Heels have been like a Jekyll and Hyde team, They were really good one half, which was the second half of the South Carolina game. They were great in the first half of the Miami game.
Right.
And they were really good the second half of this Wake Forest game. It's the other half that has killed them. We've been lucky to get 2 wins. We could easily be 0-3.
Yeah, it's like I talked about back when we did the season preview back in August, Ben. It's like, we could play really good football and be 0-3 sitting at this time of the year. And I'm glad we're sitting here 2-1. Instead of 0-3, but we definitely could have been 0-3, and not many things would have had to have been different. All these games were close. But talking about this particular game, the big thing that stood out to me, in the beginning at least, was our lack of enthusiasm. It's hard to really measure that when you're watching it on TV because you're not with the players. You can't really tell exactly what they're saying on the sideline, what their morale is, but it just didn't feel like we came out with the same amount of energy that we did in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and what little energy we had in those first few drives were quickly extinguished. Especially, and I definitely want to bounce this off of you, but benching Howell in the second quarter, I personally don't think that's a very good move, just because this is a true freshman quarterback who's been balling out the first 2 games of the season. He's not playing very efficiently, but he's not playing terribly. He's not having a bunch of missed throws and things like that. And to take him out of the game, I feel like that impacts morale more than it helps anything.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on the dot there, Ben. I mean, when they took him out for the end of that first half, I was just thinking to myself, all right, well, there goes that game. Because, I mean, it's like you have to ask yourself, what do you think is the best thing that's going to happen there? The best thing that could possibly happen is Jace comes in, and this is nothing against Jace, but he comes in, gets us one good drive or so, we maybe get a field goal, maybe a touchdown, who knows, on the board, and then we're talking about a quarterback controversy. The worst thing that can happen is Sam completely takes it to the head. He starts, questioning himself, his confidence that he's built up over the past 2 weeks, where he's been heroic at times. And then we have a quarterback who's not really sure what the coaching staff thinks of him and is, looking over his shoulder waiting to be taken out whenever he throws an incompletion. And so the risk reward there was we did not act. I didn't think we acted in our best interest there when we look at a risk reward analysis of that decision.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, I place more of the blame for that really slow offensive start on the offensive staff more than Sam or more than any of the players. They were just not drawing up the right plays at the right time.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this a little bit off of air, but we have to start getting into these games quicker. Miami, we kind of came out of the gates and really hit them fast. South Carolina and Wake Forest, it's almost like we kind of wanted to ease into it a little bit, and that's all fine and good, especially if that's part of your game plan. But I mean, you have to know when to just stop doing that and just let the kid play, Sam meaning the kid, and let everybody get after it eventually. Because Wake Forest got up on us early because they came out with that energy, and then we couldn't get back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, they took the training wheels off at the beginning of the Miami game, which was awesome, and for some reason they kind of put the training wheels back on.
Yeah. That's a good way of describing it. Yeah.
So, I don't know. There were just some interesting decisions. Nonetheless, they made it a really exciting game. They tore off 18 points. We scored 18 points in the second half. Wake Forest scored 3, so we climbed back up there and just barely didn't get out of there. We could have won the game, scored a touchdown, and won the game by 1 point. But there was some interesting clock management on that last drive, which if you watched the game, you were probably screaming at the TV.
Yeah.
Walk me through what you were thinking.
Well, for sure, you definitely can have that reaction. My first reaction was that, kind of like, okay, what in the world are they doing walking off the field? Why are the referees not talking about this, discussing this? And the replay was obvious we had a second left. Now, we don't know if we would have been able to do anything with that. It's a Hail Mary from I think it was the 45-yard line, which is not the most unlikely play, but it's certainly not a likely play.
I don't think there's an arm strength issue. I think Sam can get it down there. But
yeah, but Wake obviously would have plenty of people back there to defend that because that's our only option. So unless we wanted to run a hook and ladder or something, which is even less likely to be a scoring play. But the big thing, I don't want to harp on this too much because I don't like talking about what the refs did wrong and stuff like that and trying to make up some sort of excuse, because at the end of the day, I don't think we really played well enough to win this game. So I don't want to put it all on that last play where we kind of got doofed by the referee a little bit. But this, I think, is an example of why college football is not quite at the level of operational efficiency that the NFL is. Because if this had happened in the NFL, there would have been instant replay. They would have had to have looked at it again. This would have never happened, basically. You're not going to see the teams walk off the field. The referees just go to their cars as soon as something like this happens, when there's a question of whether there's time left in a game that's one score away from being tied. So I just wanted to point that out and say, college football is a great thing. We love it. It's, full of emotion, but it made me think about how this would never have happened had it been the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the refs in the NFL can't make bad calls. We're seeing it every week. But as far as the procedure goes, I don't know. It's just frustrating. And I was a little frustrated at Mac Brown's reaction, because if I were him, I'd refuse to get off the field. I would keep yelling about it until I rolled over. Just because, 1 second, probably 99% chance not going to be able to do anything. But still, we have a 0% chance of coming back and winning that game if they end the game with a second left.
Right.
So it's just also frustrating because who was the running back on that last play? Was that Michael Carter?
Yeah, it was Michael.
Yeah, so I don't know if he didn't realize he needed to go out of bounds or if he thought the clock had expired so the game would end if he went out of bounds, but he hesitated and just drew extra seconds. If he had gotten the first and beeline towards the sideline, we'd probably have like 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think so too. But it almost looked to me like, now I may have just seen this in replay. I don't know if this really happened. You'd probably have to ask Michael. But it looked like Wake Forest was kind of like holding him in bounds almost, like just, pulling him back. It looked to me like he was trying to get out of bounds a little earlier than he did. Still may not have been early enough, but it looked to me like they were making an effort to keep him in bounds, which may have been why it looked like he was hesitating. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, still, there was a second left, and it sucks that it has to end that way, and we ask questions about what if and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that, I would be a lot angrier if I felt like we deserved to win this game,
right.
But we didn't deserve to win this game. Sage Surratt had 169 yards receiving off of 9 receptions. How does that happen? What in the defense was letting this guy run free?
Well, I mean, we talked about it earlier in the week when we were previewing Wake Forest. This was a team that had a lot of big receivers. Mm-hmm. And with Patrice going out at corner and our corners not being very big anyway, that's obviously a big concern, And because of the way they were able to run the ball, I mean, running the ball was not necessarily their biggest thing in this game by any means. But they still had that as a threat, which made our safeties not be able to just drop back and then wait for the receivers to come to them. So then it created one-on-ones, and Sage Surratt won those one-on-ones against Trey Morrison and the whole crew, really. Mm-hmm. So, they got huge chunk plays out of that, and that, I think, accounted for a lot of their success offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was really wrong when I assumed, because Wake Forest hadn't played a team of North Carolina's caliber that they were just not going to be able to do anything. Man, They treated us like an FCS defense. It was tough. But
to kind of go against your point a little bit there, I mean, yeah, it definitely looked like we were beneath them in terms of being able to match up with their skill guys. Mm-hmm. But to be fair, I mean, like I said earlier, we were on the field a lot. Mm-hmm. And playing defense tired is a lot harder than playing offense tired.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when the ball is going to be snapped. You don't know where it's going. You're having to react and think every play. You don't know where you're going when it's snapped like the offensive players do. So it's a lot harder to play defense for a long time than it is for offenses to play for a long time.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah. Which makes it even more important that, we don't just go 3 and out drive after drive, especially in the first 2 quarters.
Yeah, and that's what we did. Mm-hmm. And we were still hurrying to the line doing it as well, which, takes time that the defense can rest even more.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to hand it to the team. It's so easy to get demoralized 21-0 at halftime, but for us to come back and even it was still 21-3 going into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. That's just about as demoralizing as it can get, but it still feels like our guys had the energy and the passion to not roll over and not give up and rattle off, 15 straight points. Yeah,
I mean, we played 17 or 18 minutes of really good football. Mm-hmm. Both sides of the ball, really. I mean, the only blemish that we had was we weren't able to get off the field there at the very end, which gave them that field goal that made it a touchdown advantage. And who knows if that would have impacted our play calling there at the end because we were backed up to start our last drive anyway. So who knows if it would have changed whether or not we got in field goal range. But yeah, the point is we played good football for about a fourth of the time we were on the field.
Exactly.
And that can happen, especially against ACC teams. And, we're going to talk about App coming in a little bit, but they're essentially that type of caliber team as well. So we can't expect to come out slow like this and win.
Yep. But, I mean, this might dash our college football playoff hopes, but we're still 2-1. We only need to win 4 more games to make a bowl in theory. So they're still sitting pretty. I think this team still has a little ways to go. I'm worried about injuries at this point, especially on our offensive line. Mm-hmm. But it's not the end of the world at all. And another thing is that since this game was non-conference, it doesn't count against our conference record.
That's true. Very true.
We very well could keep playing well and end up with a really good ACC conference record, and still make that the conference championship, presumably against Clemson. I mean, Pitt made it last year, and they had like 6 or 7 wins.
Yeah, because we're 1-0 in the Coastal Division right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, and it's against Miami, who is a lot of people's pick to win the Coastal Division this year. So, I mean, look, we're doing okay. And let's not forget, guys, that Wake Forest is a good football team. I mean, had we not beaten South Carolina and Miami, do you think anyone would have picked us to compete with Wake Forest like this? I mean, make it a 6-point game. I think they would have picked us to get blown out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the fact that we won those first 2 games that got everybody excited and got everybody thinking, oh, we can go beat anybody now, right? But, this is a little bit of a reality check for them, and it came at a good time, too. It's not an ACC game you talked about. It's not going to hurt us that bad in the standings, so better have it now than later on.
Yeah, exactly. I just really, really, really want to see us, ranked 24 or 25.
Oh, yeah.
We very well could have if we'd won this game. But it's all right. We still got 9 more games to go, so we'll be good. And with that, why don't we move into this upcoming week's game against Appalachian State University. Talk to me about App State.
Well, App State is a team that has had a lot of success recently, Ben. Pretty much for the last half of the decade, they have been either a 9, 10, or 11-win team. And I know they play in the Sun Belt. And I know that they're not playing the same quality of competition every year that, say, like we are or another Power 5 school is. But that's still really, really solid football. And they have a lot of good players, a lot of talented guys that will give us a lot of trouble. And, but it's kind of interesting. The last time, this is kind of a shocker to me when I was looking at this game. The last time we played them was 1940.
Yeah, well, I think we mentioned that in our season preview, which is just crazy considering that, they're right there.
Yeah,
over in Boone.
That kind of shocked me. Maybe we did mention it, I just didn't remember. But yeah, so the last time that we played them, the United States wasn't even in World War II yet. So that tells you perspective right there how rare of a matchup this is, even though we're not far away. So big game.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a game that we can and we should win. App State, they're sitting at 2-0, but they really haven't played anyone, and I know I said that last week about Wake, but App State really hasn't played anyone right now.
They really haven't. East Tennessee State and Charlotte, although Charlotte seems to be playing a lot better than they have since their program started in 2013, is nobody that is no one's shocked that App State won those games.
Yeah, exactly. But App State is coming into this game with a lot of momentum, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They scored 42 points in their first game and then 56 points against Charlotte last week. So what? They've scored nearly 100 points in 2 games, so they are used to scoring. And if our secondary can't match up on their receivers, there is no reason that they can't run up the score on us either and make this just a gunfight. Yeah, but this will be, we said this for Wake Forest, and, we kind of got heat checked for that, but App State, this will be the first time that they've seen a defense like us, and I can say that pretty confidently, at least especially this year. Last year I can't remember who all they played, but this year this is definitely their first true test in terms of their offense going against our defense. Because East Tennessee State and Charlotte, neither one have Power 5 defenses, and I think it's safe to say that with our wins early in the season, we have a Power 5 caliber defense, most definitely. So this will be tough for them, for sure. And I'm glad that they have us favored in this game because early in the season, before we had won our first 2 games, it was the other way around. App was supposed to win this game. It was supposed to be close, but they were supposed to win. So now the narrative's kind of flipped a little bit because everybody's thinking, all right, well, we would like to think, Carolina would win this game, but App's been a lot better recently. But now maybe it's shifting back. So it's kind of a toss-up. Yeah, exactly. So as far as ESPN's football power index is concerned, they've got the Tar Heels winning at 70.7% to App State's 29.3%. So that's a pretty considerable margin. But again, that doesn't mean anything. No. What I'm afraid of is App State taking advantage of our specific weaknesses. And I see our weakness right now as depth on our in our defensive backfield. And then just lack of, I don't want to say lack of athleticism because they're athletic, but experience and whatever you want to call it for our linebackers.
Right.
I think that there's a fair amount of weakness right there.
Well, and another thing I want to point out, after Scott Satterfield took a hike up to Louisville, their new head coach, Elijah Drinkwitz, was the North Carolina State offensive coordinator. So talk about a guy who knows us a little bit. I mean, we haven't played this team in forever, but he knows us, and he's played against us before as a little more limited role, but he's played against us before. So he kind of knows our defensive personnel especially. So I definitely think you're right that they will look at those weaknesses and attack them. Yeah. Because, I mean, he's familiar with them. He knows what our personnel can do. I mean, we played them last game of the season last year. It wasn't even a year ago that we saw these guys, and he was out there calling plays against this same unit. So, we'll have to see, but I definitely think he'll attack our weaknesses.
No, I totally agree. So what are some of the keys for this game, you think, if UNC is gonna take this one?
Well, I think we first need to figure out a way we can match up with Corey Sutton. That's easier said than done because, we saw Surratt torch us last week. But we got to find a way to neutralize this size at receiver that is starting to haunt us a little bit. Yeah. We can't do anything about Patrice being out for the year. We can't do anything about losing KJ to the transfer portal. So we've got to have people step up and find a way to stop these guys. I mean, Corey Sutton will do the same thing Sage Surratt did if we try to line up with just man-to-man and let them throw outside the numbers.
Yeah, but what do you do schematically if you've got smaller corners against a large wide receiver?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about just the corner having to be the guy guard him, it's about positioning. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you can double cover the guy, then that's one thing. But, I mean, if you're having to rely on just one guy, you have to look at what the quarterback's strength is. And if the quarterback's strength is to throw the ball, back shoulder and stuff like that, then maybe you don't force him to that corner all the time. But if he's having trouble doing that and the receiver's wanting to work inside, out into the numbers, then you force him outside. It's a tough matchup, dude. I mean, nobody covers great receivers one-on-one anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, not even the NFL. You don't even see, there's very, very few corners who can match up with the best receivers in the NFL too. So, I mean, you need somebody to help. And I'd love to say that Miles Wilfork or Dorn, or sometimes, alternating both of them can help out there, but we've had to have those guys in run support because the linebackers just haven't quite been able to hold their own in there all the time yet. So I don't know. It's a really tough matchup.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you were the defensive coordinator for the Tar Heels, would you just draw up a bunch of safety help? Or do you still want those safeties in run support?
Well,
I would like a pick your poison.
It's one of those things. Well, for this particular game, if I was the coach, I would say that I would be actually a little bit more heavy on stopping their running back right now because he is actually Darrington Evans, I think is how you pronounce his name. I apologize if that's wrong. But nonetheless, he is averaging 10.1 yards a carry right now. Mm-hmm. And Sutton hadn't played a game all year. So if I'm Jay Bateman, I'm not as concerned about Sutton as I am the running back right now because he hasn't shown that he's going to be the same guy. I mean, I assume he will be the same guy, but he doesn't have a body of work this year. Mm-hmm. So I would make Zach Thomas and Sutton find each other one-on-one for a little bit and then adjust to maybe double him in some situations if they start torching us. But we can't, go pass heavy early because they'll torch us on the ground as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
It's one of those things where I'm like, all right, let's make them prove that they can find Sutton before we start, shifting our whole defense to stop him.
Okay, so yeah. you'd rather test their quarterback early. Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you let Appalachian State establish the run, especially with Evans being as effective as he is. He's, 33 carries, 333 yards, like you said, 10.1 yards per attempt, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, some of those numbers are likely unsustainable, but still, that just shows you how dominant he is and how dominant their offensive line might be. I haven't actually seen too much of them playing, but a really strong run game generally correlates with some serious grinders on the offensive line.
Yeah, and this is a pro-style type offense now, too. When Satterfield was there, they ran more of a pistol-type offense, but now they're running more of a pro-style, NFL pro-style, one-back kind of system. So it's really friendly to the run if they have the personnel to do it. And so far, they've proven they have. Of course, the defense hasn't been equal to their talent yet that they've played, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's a tough game plan this week because there's so many things that they could do to hurt us. There's not really one thing we can pinpoint. It would be great to say, let's just, try to stop their big size at receiver. But then we, give up a lot of yards on the ground. And, okay, well, let's attack the ground, then maybe these tall guys do the same thing Surratt did last week, and we're back at giving up chunk plays that result in touchdowns. So I don't know. I think being at home will help a lot with that too. And the energy that hopefully the guys will come out with will help with that as well, because we started kind of flat. So taking all that for granted, considering everything, I think we'll do a better job in general on defense this week.
Yeah, I absolutely think we're going to give up some points.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so important that we start strong on offense. We stay strong. It doesn't help if we put up 21, 28, 35 points in the first half if we don't put anything up in the second half and just have to ride out the storm like with Miami.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and they will come in here like bats out of hell trying to beat us.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would want nothing more than to beat us at Kenan Stadium. App State is not jealous of Carolina from the perspective of football success recently. But it's one of those in-state schools that always kind of looks at Chapel Hill as that big brother that we always want to beat kind of thing. And this is their opportunity. So they're going to come in here ready to play. And even though we're at home, we better be ready to match their intensity.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of yellow up in that
Yeah,
stadium. So that's why, still, this game sold out pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So there are going to be a lot of Tar Heel fans there too. But what do we need to do offensively to get going? What should we air it out more early? Should we get the run going early?
Well, we were talking about how App State might attack our corners. We got to attack theirs.
Yeah.
Last year their defense was impeccable, Ben. They were they held teams to 15.5 points a game. They were 5th in the country against the pass last year. The whole country. So, and I know, again, their competition's not up to par all the time, but you got to give them credit where credit's due. 5th in the country is awesome no matter who you're playing. But they lost both of those corners, one of which I think was Storm Duck's cousin. Who went to the Bears. I can't remember his first name. But anyway, they lost both of their corners. They returned their safeties. Their linebackers are mostly back. Their front's mostly back. But I think we attack outside the numbers. Make them cover our skill guys. Diami and Daz are no joke.
Yeah, well, Diami Brown especially, he's shown that he's one of the fastest guys right now. And he's had an awesome season so far. So does that mean just taking the top off of their defense?
I say let Sam throw it. Look, they're going to shade their safeties a little bit because they are very experienced up front, and they can afford to kind of call bluff on our run game for a while and maybe not play single coverage on the outside with their inexperienced corners. But we've got to open the field up. We can't throw bubble screens and stuff like that. They're aggressive.
I see one more bubble screen.
Yeah, it's good in some situations, but we're running it too often and we're not running it very well.
Yeah,
quite frankly,
we run it when they don't bring any pressure on the defensive line.
Yeah.
So they just tackle us.
If you get cover 0, then it's okay to throw a bubble screen because there's no one who can possibly tackle the guy if he makes one man miss. But that's not what we've been getting. But I think we do need to air it out some. I'm not saying we go out there and just throw all 3 of our first downs. I think because another thing we could do is we can, we have the ability to run out of spread sets.
Yeah.
And App State as a team, I was watching a little bit of Jay Bateman's, some of his quotes from the weekend, stuff like, not Jay Bateman, Phil Longo, sorry. Some of his quotes from his press conference this week about how to attack their defense. And he mentioned that they like to stack the box a lot early to, stop the run first and then worry about the pass later, hopefully when they built a lead up. Okay. So that's a little bit of their philosophy there. I think they'll probably do the same thing there, but we have the ability to spread the field out and run the ball as well. So if they want to line up in those bigger sets, I say okay. Let's keep our smaller guys out there, spread them out, make big guys cover small fast guys.
I'll take
and,
that
and see if they can handle it. If they can get to the quarterback and don't have to worry about him getting the ball out to our fast guys, then that's one thing. But I say make them do it. If they want to line up big and stop the run, let's line up to pass and let's either run outside or let's throw it quickly and make them get out of that. And then after they get out of that, then we run.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But since we're nearing the end of this episode, why don't we get to the moral of this story, Zach? So, what's one thing that we have to do in order to go home with the victory? 3-1 on the season.
We have to come out with way more emotion and intensity than we did against Wake, but not to the point where it's to our detriment. We can't get too psyched to play, but we better be more psyched to play than we were last Friday.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. It's about intensity. It's about emotion here. These are kind of evenly matched teams, Ben. So It's kind of a toss-up. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's a toss-up. But I think if we come out with that intensity that we missed last week, we can come out of here with a win. So I think that's what we have to do to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's emotional.
Yeah, on the defensive side of the ball, I think if our cornerbacks can hold up on their own, with or without safety help, that's going to be the biggest thing. If we can just keep it inside the numbers, contain that run game, I think we should be good. But we just can't let anyone go off the way Sage Surratt went off last time.
Yeah.
But Zach, give me a score. Are we going to win this? But more importantly, are you going to correctly predict the game?
I feel like I should just pick against us, so hopefully we do win. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to pick us to win. But I think it's going to be high scoring. I'm going to go 40-37 Heels. I don't know if it's going to be a walk-off field goal, but it could be something like that to give us that 3-point win. But I think we're going to do just enough here. We'll come out with that emotion. I think they've learned their lesson. It will be tough. They will lead us at some point in this game. But I think we have it in us to fight through it, the mental toughness, the environment of being at home. I think we can find a way to win this game.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It's funny because we never tell each other what we're thinking as far as the game goes before the podcast. But we always tend to agree. I think it's going to be very high scoring too. I think it's going to be 57-50. Just absolutely insane.
Are they going to put defenses on the field, or are we just going to throw on air?
De'Ami Brown's going to have 200 yards. Book it right now.
Okay, I love that. He's on my fantasy team. No, I'm just kidding.
So we'll see just how accurate those predictions are, but I'm excited for this game. I know you're excited for this game.
Yeah. We'll both be there, we're hoping for more blue than gold. Let's make sure we make that happen.
Yeah, exactly. So if you, dear listener, are at this game, make sure you are ready to yell. Don't talk all of Friday to get your voice ready. Might be a little bit of a warm one too, but they definitely need the noise.
Yeah, because right now App State thinks they can come in here and claim this as their state in football, and we have a chance to remind them that, hey, little brother, you're still down there.
Go back to the mountains.
Yeah, go back up to the mountains.
Well, anyway, that's all from Zach and I. So thank you guys, as always, for checking in and listening to the Heel Deal podcast. We should be back on our normal schedule. We'll get an episode out next Monday.
Yeah.
Recapping this, and then can't wait to preview the all-important Clemson game.
Yeah.
We'll see just how...
We'll take it one game at a time.
Yeah, we'll see just how optimistic we are going into that game. But, thank you guys again for listening. And as always, Zach...
As always, go to hell, Duke.
Go to hell, Duke.
Go Heels.